What's up, guys? Welcome to Fitter Food Radio. This is episode 201, and it's me, Matt Whitmore.
And me and Hamish.
Yeah, who's me? I'm going to say Keris Marsden. Someone might be tuning into
The
this for
first
the
time ever.
first time ever, and they ain't got a clue who we are.
Keris Francine Potter Marsden. That's my full name. Don't waste it.
Yeah. Remember you say that as a kid, like, that's my name, don't wear it out.
Yeah,
You remember that when
yeah.
you say your name, like, Matt, that's my name, don't wear it out.
I've been asked
But
about 5 times this week if I'm Welsh.
you are.
I've been asked about 5 times this week if I'm Welsh.
If my ears are blocked, you're talking real quiet.
Probably me talking very quiet.
That's
It's Monday. We don't normally podcast on a Monday.
It's a manic Monday, isn't
Monday is
it?
a quiet day for me. I'm normally introverted and just head down.
And to be fair, we had a late night last night, didn't
We
we?
did. We broke our
My
usual
goodness.
routine and stayed out till midnight
Yeah. On a
socializing.
Sunday. That's the mad bit. I mean, it's mad enough to be fair to know that we were out until midnight. But on a Sunday, just it takes it to a whole nother level.
You revel.
I do. I feel
Revel.
like a proper rebel.
People that do
Like,
this all the time are like, what? Calm down, Matt.
well, it was quite funny because when we were chatting last night and we were like, because you had said to me, you're going to regret this in the morning. Um, and then someone else there was like, oh, it's only like quarter to 12. It's not that bad. And I was thinking, like, what? It's just 4 hours past my bedtime. What are you on about? But no, it was a lovely evening with friends. It was like a little mini early Christmas get together, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. Loved it.
Yeah. So it was
It was,
well worth the sleep deprivation.
it's one of those things recently where we've decided, obviously coming to a new country and I guess you're starting a new life, but we've said we want to not repeat the mistakes we've made in the past, which has been around this time of year, just I guess prioritizing our business because it gets really busy for us this time of year because we're trying to finish up for the year, but then also plan next year. So most people in the health industry are quite busy now.
Because it's almost New Year, New Me season.
Yeah, and we would dive out of all the social stuff because we would be like, no, we
Yeah.
can't, we haven't got the time. And then you realize why you're a bit stroppy by the time Christmas comes, or like, where did Christmas even go? Do you know what I mean? It
Yeah.
always disappeared. And I love this time of year. I always have loved the autumn, and right in the run up
Yeah.
to Christmas, I always love all of the bonfire night, Halloween, like all of the kind of mini events that happen. And I think, yeah, so this time we were like, nope, we are, even if we have work to do, we're going to go and actually you end up coming back into your work a lot more kind of refreshed. I know we're tired because we've not had much sleep, but we feel like we filled our cup socially in terms of like amazing conversation, great fun, loads of laughs, great food, way too much food. Both of us like rolled out, didn't we? And we're like, oh wow. Like, but again, it's so nice because that's not common for us. And we've been up this morning, we've been for a dog walk, we're hydrated. We've had like a little breakfast, and we won't change anything today. It's not like we're like, I can't
Back
eat.
in the game.
I can't eat for the whole week because I ate at least 6 pigs in blankets in addition to 2 full plates of Christmas dinner.
Oh,
So
having flashbacks of the goodness.
the first time I've seen you scale back on is that I'd made some fit food. If you haven't seen, by the way, we did some new Christmas recipes this year. If you head to our fit food Instagram, you can basically get a PDF. So just jump on our website and we'll send you the PDF of the recipes. But one of them was a dark chocolate and nut bar that I made. And you actually, for the first time ever, went, I think I'm full. Yeah. Which is revolutionary.
I did eat about a kilo of cheese before the food came, though, to be fair.
Yeah, that was strange. They put the cheese platter out as with the nibbles.
Yeah.
And that's your kind of like weak spot, isn't it? And then you basically had a kilo of cheese before dinner.
No self-control.
But what I realized is that's the answer. I need to give a shout out to our host Bethan because I've never seen you full and I've never understood how to achieve that. And now I do. Just a cheese platter as a starter. And then you go into your 3-course meal and then you manage 1 chocolate fudge bite and then you were like, I'm full.
No, that's not entirely true because I did eat quite a lot of the white chocolate ones.
Oh, right.
So when you had offered me that dark chocolate one, I was already
hammered a load.
About 6 white chocolate ones deep. I was like, I think that's enough. Plus, anyone who knows is, like if you have a sweeter chocolate first. Dark chocolate then tastes really dark. So I think because I'd had the white chocolate already,
Yeah, you did it the wrong way around. You have to
yeah,
have the dark chocolate.
dark first, then
Yeah.
the white. But yeah, it was too
So the
late.
dark chocolate fills you up because it's so rich. So a lot of people eat my chocolates and go, "Oh, you couldn't have many." And I'm like, that's the point.
Yeah,
It's like you just have as much as you need.
The white, on the other hand, you can have many.
Yeah.
In fact, that was the running joke towards the end. I was like, I'm so full, but
I'm
these
silly.
chocolates are so good, and just kept going. It's like, but it's
Do you know, we were
Christmas.
also talking about nibbles. It was really interesting because we were saying, a few of us, how like you can get so carried away with the nuts and the crisps and stuff that you're actually full by the time you sit down for dinner. And I always admire people that sit there with so much self-control over, especially just roasted nuts. I'm like, how do you sit there and just not eat those? Like, I just, as long as that bowl is there, I just keep going and going.
Yeah, it's so boorish, isn't it?
Terrible, yeah. And never feel full, you just keep going.
Is this episode like food confessions?
Yeah, yeah. No, but it was interesting because so many people around the table were like, I'm terrible. I don't even have nuts in the house because I just
Yeah.
get them out when I'm cooking and that's it. I've just nailed and they're obviously incredibly nutritious, but also very energy dense. So, but yeah.
As is cheese.
Yeah.
Well, funny enough, I wanted to actually share something else from the get together yesterday because I think it's really important, and then it kind of ties in nicely with what we were planning on talking about today. And you had a really good idea for a bit of a game before. It was after dinner, and everyone was like gathered around like the Christmas tree and the fire and whatnot. And you had this idea to write out a load of questions, and then you put the questions like in a hat, and then someone picks a question, and then obviously everyone answers it. And
I was just trying to get out of Monopoly, basically.
I was
So I was like, I've got a better idea.
No board games.
Yeah.
And it was really cool actually because it was really nice questions. It was things like what like what do you define as success, or what's your most toxic trait and stuff like that. Really kind
Hardest
of
decision you've ever made.
hardest decision you ever made. Yeah, and it was really thought-provoking stuff. And when you were talking earlier, when we first introed the podcast, like I was thinking about, because the question I got was like, what's your definition of success? And it was really interesting because obviously everyone's got their own version of what success is. And I suppose like you could categorize it, couldn't you, into, like success in business, success in relationships, success in life, like whatever. But to try and keep it almost like as an overall success, if you will. Like my answer was like to be able to be, completely present in moments when you're with friends, family, loved ones, or just in nature, and not be so distracted all the time by work, other thoughts, things that need to be done, things that you haven't done, like etc. Fears, yeah. And it's interesting because it's like I think a lot of people that I work with now, like, with my coaching clients, but even just my friends as well, like, I think it's something that a lot of people genuinely struggle with, to be present, when you are, whether you're at home chilling with the family, whether you're on a walk, whether you're going for lunch or whatever, like how you might be there, but are you truly there? Do you know what I mean? And it's something that I've definitely got better at, but it doesn't just need work. Like I want it to work because I want to be more present. I want to be like just in like pure gratitude for where I am and who I'm with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
And what was nice about your answer as well was it wasn't a destination. It wasn't definitive. It wasn't when I have this amount of wealth, or when I have this live in this place, or have this size house, or there was nothing physical, but also it wasn't one place. It was an ongoing process. And I think that's something that both of us have realized, because you'll never, if you kind of listen to that side of your brain that is always kind of striving and achieving and accumulating and competing in a way, you'll never have enough, because there's always a way that you could look around. But what's again been so nice about, I think, coming to Portugal is seeing people with the so much less than we see in where we were in the UK, yet so much happier, so much more joy, so much more mindfulness, very innately. No one's told individuals necessarily here to be mindful. They're just not on phones all the time.
Yeah.
They're just not overstimulated with, vast amounts of technology. A lot, especially the elders in the village that we're in, are just usually outside all the time, just sat on benches chatting. Like there's a big thing. I walked past, I don't know if I told you this or I mentioned it on the podcast. I walked past one the other day and my brain was chattering away, and I kind of like had my head down, and it's an older guy, I see him most mornings, and he went, "Bon dia," but he said it in a way that was like, you didn't say hello. Do you know what I mean? It was really not. And then he kind of smiled. I went, "Oh, I'm so sorry, bon dia, bon dia." But he said it like I was about to pass him without saying hello, which is almost, yeah, basically like you don't do that here. Like you acknowledge and smile. And I was like, oh my God, that's so nice though, to have that, like that I then see it's so important to people that you just have a mini eye contact, smile, good morning interaction. Like and it is, I think it has been lost. So it was nice when you said about being present, because I think ultimately it's always good. And here has definitely been the place that I've reflected on this, like, what's it all for? What are we doing this for? Because we can be racing and rushing life so much and then complaining, as we all do, and go, where did that year go? How is it Christmas again?
Yeah. And to be fair, like we've had that combo, haven't we? We're like, bloody hell, like it's almost, it's almost Christmas. It's almost like, like 2025, man. You're like, do you remember celebrating the millennium? And it was a really big deal, the year 2000, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But
what's really interesting here as well is we've made loads of friends, and whenever it comes to saying your age, I keep having this moment where I'm like, I actually can't believe how old I am. Like, how did that happen? Because I don't feel it. I guess because I'm also in a new place making friends. I'm kind of almost reliving like going back to teenage years and going to university and first moving to London. So it's another first for me.
Yeah.
But it's so strange to say my age, 44, out loud. And half the time I'm the oldest person in the room. And I'm like, I definitely don't feel like the oldest. As in, like, I almost feel, I said this to you before, I'm not sure I feel much older than a teenager, but in terms of the responsibility and the that I have. But it's kind of, it is just a really interesting thing to stop and go, gosh, where am I dedicating a lot of my energy and time to? And I think one of the reasons that we're all a bit more technology and social media plays a huge role in this. We're just connected a lot more, but I just think we do dedicate a lot of energy to things that I think we might regret, on our deathbed. And it's a really strange question, but I've often asked it to myself. If you had a year to live, like what we vest each other, how would you feel about the last 10 years, and what would you do with your last year? And it's just such a grounding question to ask yourself, because God, if I had a year to live now, I think I would be outside for most of it. I think I would just go and sit in all the most amazing places I could think of and just be in nature. And it wouldn't be cities, and I would want to just be, just watching sunsets and looking at the stars, and I don't know, just somewhere very, very peaceful, as few people as possible. No offense, everybody, I love it.
I love you, that
just somewhere that just sit quietly and absorb everything. But then why don't we do that in daily life? And when I do make an effort to do that, and it is hard, something that I've actually thought about doing recently is just giving myself like 20 minutes sometimes after having like lunch or dinner to really kind of truly feel grateful for what I've just been able to eat and relax, and really try and, obviously my issues have all been digestive related, but I think the way that I almost sometimes, the environment that I eat in terms of internally, what that does, because obviously when you have digestive issues, that you then get slight fears of foods and symptoms. Mine will always come after eating, but then also the maybe not wanting to just sit still and feel those symptoms creates more symptoms. Do you see what I mean? So you're shutting down gut function, but then it raised this question of, why wouldn't you go for like a 20-minute lie down after lunch or something? And it's like, well, how could we do that? So it's almost, but everyone does it here. Like it's, a siesta is part of their culture. And that's why we've got these blue zones in many of these, where there's big social communities, lots of connection, one glass of wine a day and then a siesta. And and many of them are really physically active as well, because many of the people here are still doing kind of physical labor, aren't they? So
Oh God, yeah, yeah.
we're in awe at the sweet potato farmer, aren't we? Which we've mentioned him before.
Well into old age, yeah. Like, but I think it's I don't know, like, you know, like we're obviously where we are on our journey, you know, and we've had like lots of opportunities to do some reflection and just some re-evaluating, I guess, you know, of like how we are spending our lives, how we're spending our days. And look, at the end of the day, like some days are going to be better than others. You know, like life will throw some epic curveballs our way, you know, some days. And you know, we'll have to deal with those when they come. But I do feel like a big part of like our reflections have been around like, you know, what are we doing in our day, in our week that is for us, you know, like that we enjoy? Like, are we doing enough of the stuff that we enjoy? Or have we created this narrative around those things that's very much like, oh, well, who are you to do that when X, Y, and Z needs doing? Or, you know, like your business isn't where you want it to be. And, you know, and that's what we did. You know,
Yeah,
we were almost like, we couldn't possibly have time off because we're self-employed and we're on, you know, we're on a mission to achieve all these things. And that's something that we've had to work on. And as a result, the knock-on effect of that has been for me that I haven't been as present as I would like to be in situations when not only do I want to be present, but the people that I'm with deserve me to be present and vice versa. And do you see what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like,
definitely.
and that's why like when I did get that question about success, it's like that to me, like to be present, and I was yesterday. We had such an amazing like afternoon and evening, and I didn't think about work once. I didn't think about anything like that, and it was so nice to feel that way. Because there's been often times when we are socializing where there has been that little voice in my head, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
like, well, you know, should I really be here today? Like, I feel like I should be doing this, that,
yeah, yeah,
or
yeah,
whatever. And I think it's the same for a lot of people. I think it is. And I think like, you know, we all need to work. We all need to earn a living. You know, we need to, you know, to look out for our friends and our family. You know, it's just what you do as a decent human being who's getting by in the world. But at the same time, like, don't be so quick to lose yourself in the process, because I think many people have
yeah, yeah.
in some shape or form. And I think like, you know, not to go all like deep with it, but you know, we are approaching a new year and some people are a bit anti New Year resolutions and whatnot. I love it personally because I almost do see it as a bit of a clean slate type thing. And I think it's a real opportunity to go, you know what, here's what I really would love to achieve this year, but go beyond the oh, I want to lose this much weight, I want to be this dress size, I want to look good in my bikini in my holiday in the summer. Like, by all means, have those goals. Like, I'm all for an aesthetic goal, but why not go a bit deeper than that? Because you know, for me, it's the knock-on effect. It's like, well, what could you change elsewhere in your life that would probably have a really positive knock-on effect to you being able to lose weight, being able to stick to an exercise regime or whatever it may be. It's often not as black and white as, oh, you just don't have the discipline, you don't have the willpower. Um, it
Do you know what I think it's also really powerful. So you're absolutely right. It's like, I think if you are, we were in a really, I guess in a way, a unique position because we've now been doing this for pretty much 15 years, over 15 years since we first met. We went into being personal trainers in a London gym,
we're together.
coaching.
Like, I was I was in the game long before that,
Yeah,
love.
sorry, and you were in it long before that. I was more kind of in the food industry, nutrition side of things, but still, like we've been kind of observing all of this. And then what's kind of interesting at the moment is people are coming back to us and they're struggling again.
Mm.
And both you and I definitely got to a point, especially when we did like a couple of books where I was like, we've said everything everyone needs to know. You don't need it anymore. And I always tried to make that my goal. And that's how I think I overwhelmed people in the beginning, because I was like, I'll tell you everything you need to know, and then you don't need to pay me any more money. I don't want you wasting your money on this. on you go.
Yeah.
And that very naively. And then it's like, over time, obviously, the longer we've been in the game, we realize, yeah, okay, there's the drivers that are influencing your choices around food and exercise and all the other things that we need to do for our health are often where the mismatch is it's not been right. So it has been, for most people, the driver has been body image related, which is always about how you appear to others, how you appear to society. It's about, kind of just matching up, looking like you're supposed to look compared to the Instagram, the Facebook, or the friend that's lost weight, whatever you're doing in terms of comparing and contrasting yourself. And what you're not acknowledging is, why do I always want more food? Why do I struggle so hard to exercise when I know it makes me feel good, it helps with my energy, it makes me feel strong, it's great for my body? Like, why the struggle? Why is everything so hard? And this is why me and you've really changed our approach, I would say, in the last couple of years. And, in our January programs next year, we're going to start everybody off by asking some really important questions, because actually eating well and exercising should not be this hard. There'll always be elements of like, yeah, you've got to have a bit of motivation. James Clear, Atomic Habits, talks about this. But eventually, once you've experienced the benefit of it, it should bed in. And it seems to me that some things bed in and other things don't. So what I tend to see is lots of people got the message about trying to cook more and eat real food. But then when life got busy and stressful, that got too hard. And so it was almost like, well, if I can't cook and eat really nutritious food, then I'll just have the complete opposite and go back to like breakfast cereal and toast. And that was what I used to live on before I studied nutrition, because it's just really convenient and I perceived it as healthy. But obviously it just lacks so many nutrients that we need, and especially as we age. So I think there's a reason that you're doing all of this stuff, and you have to really release yourself from the guilt, release yourself from the torture of that kind of like, I have, like you said, no willpower. I'm not trying hard enough. It's like you literally go at yourself and don't ever stop and go, there's a reason. Our bodies are very powerful and very wise, and the body is driving this kind of eating behavior for a reason.
Yeah.
There is something that you're uncomfortable with, that you're not acknowledging, not perhaps exploring. And that's why the leading part of your choices is that kind of dopamine element of like, I just need a hit. I need food reward. And in some cases of people that I've worked with, they like to stay. We talked in one of our sessions about the snake in the dark cave, where it's more comfortable to suffer in the dark cave than actually step out into the light. This is a story, a shamanic story, by the way. It's not, I'm not suggesting you all step out into the light and see the divine. But like it can be really scary to strip off all the layers and go, I'm not going to care about whatever it is that's kept you in this box of making everything so hard. And just to kind of share, I think my experience with my gut was really interesting, because I went down every single rabbit hole of supplements, herbs, and medications, and extreme versions of diets that are what we call diet modulation in the nutrition industry. So it can be like a low residue diet, a vegan diet, gut and psychology syndrome known as GAPS diet, carnivore, keto, all these things. I was actually looking for just some degree of food that my body could digest. It wasn't that any of these were what I would perceive to be an ideal diet. But in the process of that, taking away a lot of foods, and because I had like elements of reflux, I did things like low acid diets. And then I was like, is it histamine? Let's try low histamine. It got to a point where I was like, I think I'll just eat dust. There's nothing left. Do you know what I mean? I've gone down that many rabbit holes. And the state of fear and stress I'd got myself into, because also as I was trying these different interventions, I was like, but this is so limiting and restrictive that I can't do a lot of things I love. I can't eat out anymore. I can't go and see friends because I hate being an inconvenience to people, which is something I'm working on. Because I did have a lot of friends that were like, I'd love to cook for you. Just tell me what you can eat. And I was like, no, I can't possibly ask that of you. But what I then realized is what's doing me more harm, the symptoms or the fear around those symptoms and the stress of trying to implement all of this. But what I also noticed was that the cravings got so strong, and I was like, this is kind of the journey of the extreme dieter again. In fact, it reminds me of being a teenager when at university I used to be very kind of disciplined, go for my runs, eat salad, and then come home. Mum would go, you looked underweight, and she would cook all these like sausage plats and pastries and like, and I would devour them, gain half a stone, and then go back to university. Like, it's more the opposite of what most people had, where they gained weight at university and then parents might have said get eating healthier. I was the other way around. And so it reminded me of like when you restrict in this way and get so kind of harsh on yourself, all the brain wants to do is overeat and binge, and it really does get so powerful. And then you give yourself so much crap when you are almost powerless in that situation. And I've really believed that, and that's when I started to have these moments, and I've been to see lots and lots of different practitioners who've really helped me and said, like, it's not like it fixed your symptoms. So is there somewhere in between that you can eat nutritious food, minimal symptoms, and then really work on going out and socializing and all the other things that fill your cup? And that alone has been a really amazing process, because the first thing I thought, and you've seen this a lot with your clients, is I don't even know what I want to do. Like, I remember being frozen and going, but if I'm not fixing all of this and all the other people in my life, what do I do? Like, what do I want to do? How am I happy? And that's been such a big clue as to where the problem was in the first place, you know. So when you're saying, why can't I give up the booze? Why can't I give up the coffee? We've talked about this on previous episodes. It's like, because you're not you.
Booze, just not the coffee.
But and again, is that because the coffee is an interesting one? Because yes, it tastes nice, but I think there are elements to which me and you have always overworked ourselves, overcommitted, and not been great with like the amount of things that, and therefore we need caffeine, the stimulus of it. And it's again, another like amazing thing was when someone told me that caffeine really took off in the Industrial Revolution, so that business entrepreneurs could exploit people and get them to work past their natural capacity for energy. Like, and that's what caffeine does. We override resource. Like,
that's the only reason they introduced like a coffee break. It's like, make it like we're giving them a break, but actually it's an opportunity to drink coffee, so they'll work harder and longer.
Further.
But again, like that, to me, it comes back to, I mentioned that kind of like that knock-on effect, and it's almost that knock-on effect of decision making, and it's like, what things can you do in your day that serve you really, really well and have that positive knock-on effect, and potentially increase the likelihood that your next decision is going to be a good one. You see what I mean? And it's like, so I always say to people, like, as much as you might not necessarily want to get out early for a walk or go for a run or go to the gym, do you feel better when you've done it? And do you notice that you make better decisions in your day because you've exercised in the morning, you've got outside in the morning, or whatever it might be? And I think like, that's where I'm like trying to go with this. It's like, what can you do to have that positive knock-on effect to your next decision, and so on and so on and so on.
Habit, isn't it? Gateway habit. A gateway habit, as James Clear called it.
That
one gateway habit. So it could be, I often say to some clients, I think it's doing the food shop, and then you stay accountable to, because you don't want food waste and the food is in the fridge, but also you never know what's going to happen that week. And just interestingly, with me and you, we going to this party knew that we just knew we'd overindulge. We knew we'd have a late night. And we knew it's a Sunday, so you're going, it's Monday morning. So we cooked up a load of food, didn't we? And so we have in basically loads of protein-rich food in the fridge. So today it's not like, oh, I should not eat today because I think I ate for 4 yesterday. It's no, get straight back on the protein. I was like, there's no way I would train today, because with that sleep deprivation, all my body's going to want is a walk in nature and an early night. So it's just having the confidence and just also one thing I didn't mention before was I realized for a very long time that I didn't trust myself and trust my body in a way. And again, I see this a lot. Clients often mirror things where it's like, I can see that was definitely part of my journey, and I've managed to either understand that better, let it go, or become aware of it. It could always be part of you that there's a fear of, when I go into these situations, I'm always going to overeat or I'm always going to overtrain. Like we've talked about setting up some group exercise stuff here, and I'm like, I hope the old me doesn't come back that thinks I've got to compete and do you know what I mean? Be super fit all the time. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm in my mid 40s. I ain't got it in me anymore. But I'm almost quite pleased because I can go, I'm older than you lot now. I don't need to do this shit. Like, I'll
Yeah.
still train, but it's like, but do you know what? The younger you used to have so many kind of, I used to have so many drivers that I don't think came from a very good place. And
Yeah.
you're quite invincible in your 20s and 30s. So your body kind of just goes with it. And then as we age, it's a bit like your body goes, no, you can stop this shit now and sort
Yeah.
out we talked about the mad woman in the attic. You
Oh
can
yeah.
start to go and sort her out instead of driving me so hard. Like the body is almost
Yeah.
having a convo with you. But sorry, just to come back to your other thing was about presence. The same thing around food and exercise. Like if we're going into these situations present and confident and trusting in ourselves, and this takes a lot of practice because busy, stressful lifestyles, lots of negative emotions, conflict, guilt, shame, we eat super fast.
Yeah.
We wolf our food down. We don't want to sit and look at the plate. We don't want to, it's almost like a panicked state.
Mm.
And it drives really poor eating habits in terms of the way that we eat our food and don't chew it. And then we kind of start to think, oh, I've got all these digestive issues because our stomachs are basically a knot at that point. Sorry, I interrupt you, Gone.
No, no. I don't think it is.
So the presence part, I think, is really important because if you can be present, then you can trust. And this was said to me when I was really getting to a point where I was like, if you tell me that a food is bad for my digestive system at this moment in time, I've just started to eat it and I can't even tell you why. I've literally gone like rebellious person. And it was really helpful when I heard someone just say, this is perfectly natural. Did I say the statement, what's full needs emptying and what's empty needs filling? I haven't said that yet, have I?
No.
But that was a sentence that I was like, light bulb went on. And it's a psychotherapist actually who helps people with chronic illness. And she said, what you'll realize on the healing journey is as you start to get a handle that this is linked to emotions, linked to your self, but also your surroundings, your community, your connections, your work, everything, that all of this can, the way that it can affect your body, and you start to do that little
Mm.
assessment and acknowledgement of these things, that your brain can start to go absolutely nuts in the process and a little bit more chattery and, obsessive compulsive. And she said, but actually that sentence, the next sentence she said was, because what's full needs emptying and what's empty needs filling. And that's the really powerful part. I realized that even through digestive flares, when you don't eat anything, all the brain wants to then do is eat all the food.
Mm.
But equally, if you then don't socialize, there's a real emptiness there if you're
Yeah.
not going out making social connections. And if you are not very well, they don't have to be around food and booze and drink
No.
and stuff. Like I meet friends to walk the dogs, I meet friends for saunas now, and I've got better at reaching out and going, would you like to do this with me? Which is hard as an
Yeah.
adult, isn't it? We've talked about that before, but like you
Okay.
can actually steer people to go hiking instead of
Yeah, but
a
that's the
pub
thing,
for
isn't
six
it? Yeah.
hours.
Like we was chatting about this with one of my mates out here the other day. Like it's nice, it's nice meeting up with your mates in the pub. It's nice enjoying a few drinks and having a chat. But sometimes, like, it's like you don't always want the social side of things to be associated with alcohol or an indulgent meal or whatever it might
Yeah.
be. And about a month or so ago, me and a mate of mine were like, we're just craving being in nature. And we met up, grabbed a coffee, walked the cliff tops here, and then literally just went and down to the beach, dipped in the sea, and then just sat on the beach chatting for a couple of hours. Like no food, no alcohol, just literally like a bottle of water, and it
Yeah.
was like we had a really, really good chat. And I think like it's it's needed, it's all needed because it's like, I'm not saying that meeting up with your friends socially and having a drink and having food, that you shouldn't do it. 100% you should, because I feel like a conversation last night, in fact, was around the blue zones, like,
Yeah.
the countries with the highest amount of like centenarians and stuff. And, like what we were saying is like, when you look at it, these places, they drink, they eat processed food in the form of bread, probably what they made themselves though. So there is a bit of a difference. But for me, it's more powerful that they're enjoying alcohol with friends, with family, in a community. They're present. You know what I mean? And it's like, as much as we can start labeling, oh, you know, alcohol's bad, processed food's bad, you know, like being indulgent bad, like it's like, no, it doesn't need to be. You know, it's too much of it.
Yeah.
Of course, it's a problem, but I think, you know, we often say like it's not what you eat, it's how you ate it. I think it applies to
And
anything
who you ate it with.
and who you ate it with. Yeah, like, and I think it's so true because I think if you're enjoying time with people you love, you know, having great conversation, you're laughing, you're smiling, like to me, that is much more powerful than having a go-to, you know, in the form of comfort, you know, whether it's alcohol, cake, takeaway, because you're seeking comfort. Like you need that external thing to bring you an element of like comfort and make you feel a bit better for whatever reason. And it's like that for me is the difference. It's like when you're having these things, it's like what is the environment in which you're having them? And I don't just mean like who you're with, but in your own headspace.
Yeah.
You know, am I having this glass of wine now because I've decided to enjoy a glass of wine, whether it's with a friend, whether it's on my own at home, because I've just finally put my feet up after a long day, and you're taking that time out for yourself to, I don't know, watch a film or whatever and enjoy a couple of glasses of wine? Or are you having a glass of wine because the day's gone to shit, you're really stressed, you're like, oh, I need a drink. And do you know what? I can't even think of cooking tonight, so I'm going to get a takeaway. And then you give yourself shit for it that later that night or the following day because you're like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. You know, like
Well, it's like we mentioned yesterday when we were talking as a group about agency, because I said, I can't remember how the topic came up, but I said, I know it was on one of the questions that when you look at studies on depression, they say that agency, autonomy at work, so being able to make your own decisions and have control over outcomes and make a difference, is something that actually affects your experience of depression. So it's not about the title, the status, the, you know, as in what career you're doing and the paycheck that you take home. Yes, of course they have some influence, but when they actually put all the data in and did the research, it was those that reported having agency had reported better mood health. And we know off the back of better mood health comes better choices around nutrition, around sleep, around, you know, better sleep quality for a start, and around having the energy to exercise. I think fatigue is sometimes a fatigue of life rather than fatigue of, you know, I think every woman I speak to thinks it's hormonal and perimenopause or menopause. And I'm like, no, I think this is a life fatigue, man. Like, because it's
just
your brain
accumulated.
Yeah, your brain has just been absolutely exhausted with everything that you have experienced. But just going back to the agency side, I think before we can have agency, we have to have presence, because otherwise, if you're not present, and just going back to I'd like a glass of wine, I'd like to eat some quality streets. If you make that decision in a moment of pleasure, with connection, with mindfulness, then you sip the wine, you enjoy it, you eat the chocolate slowly, and you're like, isn't this wonderful? The Christmas songs are on. But what most people are doing is knocking back the first two glasses of wine just to come down to like normal human being level from like super highly strung. And then you've hoovered up like 20 quality streets and not even tasted them. Do you know what I mean? That's what's happening, because we're just speeding everything up so fast. And we're like, more. And it's Christmas and I need to catch up because I've just worked like 60 hours this week and I'm fried and I deserve this. And these are all the wrong messages, because actually what we're sending to our brain is, it's a lot around fear. It's a lot around, you know, fast paced and speed. And if we stop that process, and it does take time, and it comes with a lot of things like stillness, meditation, breaks, time in nature. We've talked about this on previous podcasts, and just having coaches that can help highlight this is what's going on. Then you take agency back and you can start to say, I'm going to have these pleasure foods in moments of pleasure. When the stress kicks in, I go to resource mode, which again, it's not an easy thing to do, but if you've got that awareness and can see a big stress coming, you might be like, right, let's get a good, decent shop in. Let's batch cook something simple or get some quick ready-made options in, because this is going to be a bit of a shit show of a week and we need to be resourced to deal with that. And then when you're out the other side, the deadline's done or the crisis is over, then you come back to like the pleasure. And the reason I really suggest all of you think about this, especially because January is easy. We can all go restrict. We're going to do 30 days of this, going to do that because everyone's doing it. We're not going out, easy peasy. But then you go back into life and it's like, how much more of your life do you want to waste on this process?
Yeah.
Because it's exhausting and it is a waste of your time. Yeah. Food is here to nourish us and be part of life. It's not life. Losing weight is not our life. It's not our purpose. Looking at a certain size, being a certain number on the scales is not the reason for your existence. But if you stop for a second, you probably are dedicating the majority of your free headspace to it outside of work and other things. And it's the saddest thing to observe for us as coaches. It really is the saddest thing. And we know because we've been through a similar process, we've gone through phases of this ourselves, and we know that it's a really tricky time. But if someone can highlight all this to you, it can wake you up and you can decide that this is next year is the year that you do not do this, and you really start to think about you know, the kind of why that's going on behind the scenes and tackle that. And what any group or coaching or anything that you do in January, obviously we would love to work with you, but if you go with anybody and they're putting in front of you a restrictive plan that feels like puts fear in you and you immediately think, I can't wait for this to be over, then it's not going to work. Because also another interesting thing about when you do take away the pleasure of the indulgences and the overeating, what's left can be really scary because it can be absolutely nothing. And I've seen that happen time and time again. And that's a really, really scary place. But what I promise all of you is within that process, you do find you again.
Yeah.
But a lot of the indulging is distraction and keeping you in that cave. And I think it's really powerful. Joe Dispenza says this in his books: we are addicted to suffering. Shamanic kind of books all talk about it. The human race is absolutely addicted to suffering and pain, and just loves the parasite in the mind that tells us that we're shitty. And just to go back to one of the problems, if we don't have agency and we're just hoovering up the wine in the quality streets or whatever chocolates you've got right in front of you, is what comes after that? Guilt and shame.
Yeah.
And then we'll ride on that. Like and you have to listen to Brené Brown and Oprah talk about this, but that is addictive also and will consume you. And then you're just getting no further. And in 2026, you'll be right back here again. I mean, 50 quality streets, 3 bottles of wine, and hate myself.
But again, like it comes back to like the narrative again, because it's like we can easily justify eating a fuck ton of chocolate, drinking excessive amounts, just eating all the food because it's Christmas, and it's like
I'll start in Jan.
Yeah, and do you know what? Like I eat more Christmas. You know, I love festive treats. You know,
no,
like
you don't now that we've discovered the cheese starter.
But
just gonna
listen.
You're gonna come home now, and
I probably consumed more calories in cheese than I would have done in pudding. So, from an energy balance point of view.
But from a shopping bill point of view.
Yeah, so it was by the cheap cheese.
Yeah.
Well, soon we're gonna have our own plot of land, and we live off the land, aren't we? We can like milk our own goats and make our own cheese and butter.
Exhausted, these goats. They'll just look at you going.
They're just like,
he's wearing.
Got nothing left.
He's wearing. I can't get
the quick, Matt's coming. Hide. I need a rest. My teats are killing me.
I'll be there putting cabbage on all the nipples. Going, I'm sorry, lady. I'm sorry.
Cabbage?
Yeah.
What's that?
Cabbage leaves. You put it on sort of nipples.
Do you?
Yeah.
Or is that like an old wife's thing?
Yeah, you should be doing it. You know, when you get your chafing when you were running the marathon.
Should have take a cabbage leaf down there.
A bit of Savoy down there.
The Savoy cabbage between my legs.
On the breasticles.
But yeah, and it's like, but we can justify it, you know, and that's fine, and it's like, for me, I always say to people, I don't care. I say this to clients, I don't care that you overindulged, I don't care that you drank, but it's like, I do care if you're just going to give yourself so much shit for it the next day and stay in that vicious cycle.
And even on that, if you're exploring the why, what's also quite powerful is someone said to me, the first step in the process is you explore the why, but you might repeat the behavior. But even that, I felt my nervous system drop down a gear, because it gives you a little, I'm not saying that you do this process for long, because your body won't tolerate it for very long. But if you have gone overboard, in the wrong circumstances, and by that I mean not celebratory with friends and family, but because you were really stressed, explore the why. But like you just said, then don't give yourself shit the next day. That's just like spinning out the pain for longer and
That to
longer,
me
and
is
will
like,
lead to another binge on shit food and wine. Like
no, exactly. And it's like, I think that in itself can almost be more destructive,
yeah,
excuse me,
yeah,
than
yeah.
the,
The aftermath.
yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it's like it's done, it's dusted. Like, you know, if it did make you feel a bit crappy, like learn from it and
yeah,
maybe
exactly.
like keep it on your radar for the next time you're kind of thinking of making that decision. And the hard thing is like, you know, like the reason we're talking about this, guys, is because like it is, as we said, it is coming up to New Year. It is the season of New Year, new me, and there's going to be an element of restriction for those on a quest to, you know, reduce body fat, etc. And here's the reality of it all: like there does need to be an element of restriction. Like, however, it's like how you go about creating that deficit that is required is so important. And this is the perfect opportunity to go, do I really want to do what I've always done to get the same result that's only short lived, to then be back into the same old cycle that I'm always in? And then 2026 comes, 2027 comes, and it's same old, same old. And, you know, a big part of why we created our 12-month transformation plan, which, to be honest with you, we may well run again, because we still get people reach out to us about that, was not only around giving people a longer time period to make the necessary changes to not only create change but ensure that it's sustainable, but it was an opportunity to do things in a different way to you've ever done it before. And I'm not saying it needs to be drastic, but it does need to be different. And I think, like, as I was saying earlier, it's like, could the focus be elsewhere a little bit more rather than just like, I just need to move more and eat less? Yeah, you do. Great. We've established that. That's not new news to anybody. However, there's a whole lot of other shit going on behind the scenes that has a massive influence on that decision making process. And for me, it's like maybe put a little bit more energy into that,
Yeah, I agree.
with the view that, you know, when it does come to that next meal, that next exercise session, going for that walk, taking that time out for yourself, you know what I mean? It's like, it just feels a little bit easier because you did this other thing and that had a knock on effect to the other thing and the other thing.
Do you know what's a really nice analogy? Someone else asked me a question yesterday because we were talking about age, and it became apparent that I had like 10, 15 years on some of the people there, and they were talking about surfing, and and they said a question to me was, what do you think about like kind of physical health and activity and stuff as you age? Like, how have you changed much from like when you were 20, 30? And I was like, oh hell yeah, like so much. And they were like, what though? And I said, the biggest thing for me has been I had no patience in my 20s and 30s. I wanted to do it all, and I wanted to be the best at it, and I wanted to do it really quick. And I think this is the problem. We're applying this attitude to a lot of stuff: career, weight loss, you know, kind of even emotional health. Like, I want to go for 5 therapy sessions and then be like, la, you know,
Yeah.
like
Zen,
transformed,
Zen master.
unravel 40 plus, because you could argue, and I love this, you know, he said like, really we are a combination of our ancestors, because you know there's you could argue, we said like 6 people in a marriage because your parents influence you so much, and their parents influence, so you could start to argue there's about 20 of you in this marriage because of all the values and the conditioning that come down through all the different generations.
Yeah.
And I think so any of the deep work takes time, and I like the patience element has been emphasized to me so many times over, and I've gone, yeah but I'm different, like I do everything like to the letter, I'm going to be quicker.
Yeah.
And in the end it's like, no, you actually make it harder on yourself by adding that element of pressure. And what I said to these guys was, I said, like, I used to go into everything like learning kettlebells, and immediately it was like, so what should a woman be lifting to
Yeah.
do to be a kettlebell instructor? Right, I'll get there really fast. And I'll never forget our kind of, when we went to Budapest and trained, and basically Budapest, sorry. And basically I realized I thought I had to do 100 snatches, and they're like, no, you just have to do your weight in kilos, which at that time was about 63. And I got to 63 and I was like, but I thought I had to do 100. So I just carried on going and did 100. And one of the guys shouted.
Annoyingly, I was 100 kilos.
But I remember one of the coaches going, "We've got an overachiever here." And I loved that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
really addictive. It really is. And I was like, yeah, I'm an overachiever. I'll take that. Thank you
yeah.
very much. But then these labels, we really do put so much pressure. And you know, like fast forward about 6 months and I've basically screwed both shoulders through through this overachieving.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I've got rotator cuff issues, you name it, I've got it, and I can barely do a push-up. And I think same if you were training for a marathon and weren't prepared to do all of the stretching and the foam rolling and the good nutrition work. It drives me mad that everyone just smashes pasta when they're training for a marathon. And it's like, do you know the nutrients that you're going to need, how low you could go in iron and all of these things like zinc, magnesium? But it's like you might even get that PB and you might get a few, but you're not going to age healthily. You're not going to see the quality of, you know, the quality of life that you probably deserve, given that a lot of stuff you did was perceived as healthy. If you take the shortcuts, you rush it, you push it, you race it, it does tend to end in a lot of pain and suffering.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same, like I said, with this, the kind of weight loss side of things. If you go back in, you might want to tidy things up in January, of course. Like we always, whenever I'm working with a client, we're tidying stuff up, but we're doing it in a way that doesn't feel too extreme or intimidating, so that their drive to binge is there. And then when we do see the detours, I'm like, let's look at the circumstances of that. Like, and gradually, I think what's been really nice for me is I've started to see like this idea of resourcing your body, resourcing your cells can really reframe how you look at nutrition, because you start to think, if I am going to go off on this adventure and be brave and stop caring what people think and maybe change my relationships, friendships, job, country, if I'm going to do all this stuff, I need to be energetically strong, which comes from nutrition. Like that's the fuel, that's the petrol going into the car. And why would I want to trash the car, which I have done here, and put oil in a petrol car? Do you see what I mean? Which is
Diesel.
Sorry, diesel, yeah, oil. You are meant to put oil in. This is how bad I am with cars. This put diesel in the oil. But what I was about to say was like, and I have done that here, rushing. Admittedly, I was rushing at the petrol station and grabbed the wrong pump.
Yeah, but
And it was in Portuguese.
But you know what? This is a great story, right? Because this is a great example of, well, I don't know where the fuck your head was, because they make it so easy for you now to not put diesel in a petrol car and vice versa, because the nozzles are a different
Yeah, but I
size.
forced it in.
That's what I'm saying.
Because I'm
Like
rushing.
you were like, no, like this is a dodgy pump, like blah blah blah. And you kept kind of like trying to force it in, and you know, you were determined to get diesel in a petrol car.
Yeah.
But
But
it's
also,
what's funny is when you were telling me this story about what had happened with the car, and then you said about the pump and the nozzle wouldn't fit in, I was like, no, she wasn't trying to put diesel in any petrol car. I was like, no, not Keris. Like, and then when we found out that's what it was, I was like, bloody hell! Like the universe was trying to give you signs.
it was.
This
But
is wrong.
do you know what's interesting about it is I was rushing to an appointment. So again, didn't want to let somebody down. So it wasn't even about me. And here in Portugal, you do have those like there's super unleaded or whatever it is, and then there's a diesel, and then there's a premium diesel, and I just got a bit confused. I was like, oh, that's the premium, this is the basic, and that's why I thought it was the basic petrol I was putting in. It wasn't. I was putting diesel in. But also, what's hilarious about the situation is because I had no time, I only put 10 euros of petrol in like a bloody freaking teenager. I used to do when they had no money.
Fiver used to be like
Did 10 euros.
fiver will get me to where I need to be.
And the mechanic was amazing, and he was laughing at me, and he ran me through what is diesel in Portuguese and what's petrol. But then he went, it's really lucky that you put 10 euros in, because that's why the car didn't get completely screwed. It just broke down. But there you go. So it was a lovely lesson about rushing.
Be present.
You know, and I have actually used
Portuguese.
it. I've used it on social media and said things like, you know, because we say I grabbed this food at this time because it was convenient. And I've often joked and gone, you don't put diesel in a petrol car because the pump is nearer. Like, so there are certain things in life where we're so precious about making sure it's resourced, and our body's not one of them. But this is a really nice reframe, because it is like, don't put junk in the most precious thing you're ever going to own in your life, and actually start to think. And a lot of my kind of what's really, really helped me with this eventually is doing a lot of things in my body. So it's been like going back to dancing, going back to, you know, singing lessons where I've had to release my diaphragm and connect with my stomach properly to be able to sing, doing hiking and hiking over sand dunes and feeling how strong my legs are, and like really trying to sit in my body, wear clothes where I don't give a toss what I look like anymore, like really, I guess, just appreciating your body, but being in it, not trying to escape it, not trying to change it, not trying to force it to look like someone else's body. And a lot of people call these kind of somatic practices. You can do somatic yoga, breath work is kind of a form of this, but when you're doing it, it should always be, for me, it's helped to be, just be in your body, just, you know. Actually, after I did one of my psilocybin ceremonies was quite somatic, there was a lot of kind of trembling, and she said, "Welcome home to your body." And it was a really lovely statement from the facilitator, because it's like I'd obviously gone fight, flight, freeze, don't even feel my body for a long time and not even realize that. So I think there's some, you know, and you do things like journaling, which I think is another way of like feeling your feelings and releasing some of the stuff from the
Journaling's been a game changer for me. Like it really has. And sometimes like I don't even journal. I doodle, but I doodle things that are relevant to what I'm thinking about. And it's like it's just become like an outlet for me. And yeah, and that's why I recommend it to people. I don't force it because it's like, you know, people will do it when they want to do it or when they're ready type thing. But was you finish what you were saying, by the way? Because I just wanted to bring it back to something.
Yeah, just one more thing, one more point I want to make. I did a session recently with someone who was helping me a lot on kind of family relationships, because if you are the person who likes to be in the family fixing everybody, and again, this is why I often identify very strongly with a lot of clients who are kind of in a care sandwich with kids and looking after elderly parents. We didn't have kids, but in a way it means we get pulled into a lot of responsibilities more, and we work for ourselves. So people are like, well, you've got the time.
We have a dog, you know.
You've got the time and you don't have the kids, so you can show up, or you can be the most flexible or amenable, you know, or the guilt of us is like, if anyone has an appointment at hospital, we're like, we should be there. But then the list kind of grew and grew of the people that we felt responsible for, and eventually at the detriment of our health a little bit, didn't it? And that was something that we've like identified. But in one session I did, the practitioner asked me to basically
practitioner asked me a question.
Can you lay out everyone, take these objects and lay them out as your family, and then put where you are, and then put masculine, feminine traits in there, and then your kind of inner child, which is where all your kind of loves and wants and needs are. And she did it in a way that she didn't tell me the why, and she was like, don't think, just do. And it was such an interesting experiment to do. I've never done anything like you were saying about the doodling. That just made me think that sometimes it's quite hard to find words, and actually talking therapies, after a while you start to just reinforce a lot of negative traumatic beliefs. Your brain is almost hearing you make these statements. But when you organize it as a drawing, or you organize it as like objects and go, here is where, and you can see it, and then you can go, gosh, I'm totally in the middle, squeezed, and my inner child with my love of singing and dancing is just miles away, you know. It was just really powerful to see. But also, it's every client I think I speak to at the moment, I'm like, I can't see you in this whole scenario of this week where you've just talked me through everything. Where were you? Like, yep, everyone else's needs got met except yours. And this is why I think our body then starts to, you know, and obviously our response to that emptiness, because we're not nourishing and resourcing ourselves, is the craving for the chocolate and the whatever it is.
Yeah, but no, exactly.
Something salty if it's you, or cheese.
Yeah, I'm definitely more savoury kind of guy. I was
You're in everything, Annika.
I am, to be fair. I am. But it's like, it's just funny when you said that, because where we are, so something that's actually quite common in Portugal is businesses close down for a stretch, like a month, to, you know, like let the workers have a break, you know, go see family and stuff like that. And some of them do it in the summer. Like I know like factories, for example, have like
August because it's hot.
And then, but funny enough, it's like the pizzeria here, which is like my favorite place. Like they were closed, and I kept like I'd gone there, and I was like, I was like, I'm going to treat myself to a pizza and a film tonight. Like if Keris is out or something, little lads night in, and I'll go there and it'd be closed. I was devastated, but I was like, oh God, it'd be really sad if I because I wasn't aware that it was just closed for
A holiday.
a holiday,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh my God, that'd be such a shame if it's closed down. It was such a lovely place, and the staff were so lovely. Um, but in a way, I thought, God, like the reason I'm telling you that, by the way, isn't just because I'm like showing my love of
Pizza.
pizza, but it's more like here it is just quite common to for businesses to be like, oh, we're just closed. Like, everyone's gonna have a little holiday and we'll
Yeah.
resume. Like, can you imagine that in the UK? Like a
Yeah.
business just going, have the month off, guys.
The
Yeah,
outrage
yeah,
and
whether
the
they pay, I don't whether they
inconvenience.
still pay the staff, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, it's just interesting. But just going back to what you said earlier, Keris, when you mentioned like resourcing yourself, and I think like you know first of all, like resourcing yourself comes in many shapes and forms, right? It's not just about eating the most nutrient dense foods all the time and not touching anything processed, yada yada yada. Like it's more about just resourcing yourself generally with good food most of the time, but also in the things that you do for yourself as well, like exercise, movement, sleep, etc. But you mentioned earlier as well, like we knew yesterday, we were gonna overindulge, just enjoy the festivities, etc., etc. And we'd kind of planned ahead for that. And as a result, we got a fridge full of like really nutritious, tasty food. We haven't got to worry about cooking. We just like, okay, heat that in the microwave, bosh, job done. Like that in itself was like a form of like planning ahead, prepping, and resourcing ourselves. And something that we talk to a lot of our clients about is like it's like what can you do now that's going to make tomorrow a little bit better or this week a little bit better? And often it does come down to planning ahead and prepping for it. So you're not there going, oh, this happened and I didn't have any food in, so I had no choice but to get this or whatever it might be. And it's like, yeah, that's all well and good. Like shit happens, but like, what are the areas where you could plan ahead a little bit better? You could be a little bit more well prepared for what's to come. And something that works really, really well for us, for our clients, is what we call just having like a plan A, B, and C. And have we spoke about this?
No.
No, like because what you often see with anyone trying to make positive change is it's like, well, I can only eat well. I can only stick to my training regime. I can only stick to my like pre-bed routine when everything's going great. All my ducks are in a row. I'm happy. Work's great. My partner's not pissing me off. My kids are on their best behavior. I can tick all those boxes. But then it's like the second like a curveball comes your way, whether it's like something kicks off at work or you've had a terrible night's sleep or whatever, it's like all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm not on my A game. Ah, fuck it. Like I'll come back to this tomorrow, and in the meantime, it's just like whatever, anything goes. And like you order a takeaway, you kind of you eat crap, you maybe I don't know, like and what we've really enjoyed doing with our clients is getting them to come up with their own plan A, plan B, plan C based on how they feel or whatever the hell is going on in their lives at that moment. Because it's like you can't only resource yourself when everything's hunky dory and going great. Because newsflash,
Mm.
like life very rarely allows for that. You know what I mean?
And also
Like
that becomes the excuse for you not to do that. So
exactly.
it's
It's
like,
like, and it's again, it's that
I can do
narrative.
this if this.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, oh, X, Y, and Z happened. So I couldn't possibly
Do this.
do this, that, or the
Yeah,
other.
yeah.
Like, and it's like, oh, well, no, you could have done had you like maybe had a bit of a backup plan.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's obviously like plan A is your everything's great plan. It's like, you've slept well, your energy's good, your mood's up, and you're like, I can get to the gym, I can get out for my walk, I've prepped all my food, everything's great. I can tick all those boxes that I intended on ticking today. Plan B, of course, is those days where, life's just maybe thrown you a little bit of a curveball. It might be that you've had a horrendous night's sleep and your energy's a bit low. So it's like, well, I can't quite commit to my plan A day because I'm not quite feeling like a plan A person. So what's my plan B? What are my commitments today that I can still commit to that aren't going to feel like overwhelming or unachievable, but I still feel like I'm in control because I can look at that list and go, you know what, based on how I'm feeling today, what are you doing?
Just look at the time. Sorry,
All right.
client. So I
I'm
just
trying to. Keris
no,
is like
sorry.
messing with the windows on my
Sorry.
Mac. It's
I
really
was literally
throwing
just
me.
thinking you're on a roll, I know, but I'm like, you also have a client, so I'm just checking you're all right at the
I'm
time.
going to start from the top because
Go on,
I'm
sorry.
joking. Back to plan A. No, so it's like, you've still got commitments on the list, but there's just not as many, and they're just a little bit more realistic based on how you're feeling. However, what I do give my clients is permission to give themselves permission to turn the plan B into a plan A.
Yeah,
If they get halfway through the day and go, do you know, actually, I'm on a bit of a roll and I feel better for committing to those things,
yeah,
I think this actually could be a plan A day after all.
yeah,
You
yeah.
see what I mean? And then, of course, your plan C day, that's for when, life's thrown a real spanner, whatever it might be. Like, in that it's just really thrown you off your game plan. Maybe it was a bad night's sleep, work's gone crazy, and your energy and your mood is just pretty low. And the thought of going to the gym just fills you with dread. The thought of eating a chicken salad fills you with dread. I mean, why wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But I'm just giving an extreme example. But again, it's like, what can my commitments be today?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I still know that I'm committing to some things that I know nourish me and serve me really, really well.
It's where even things like healthy comfort food can come in. Do you know what I mean? Like a really nice
Yeah.
baked potato with beans, but I'd rather someone
Oh,
ate that than,
nice.
sometimes like you still get some decent nutrition from that, but it's
Yeah.
comforting with some cheese on
Yeah.
top rather than kind of just what we tend to see is people do eat donuts for dinner
Yeah.
or a bowl of lackluster cereal, and it's not even that they enjoy it, and that's the sad thing.
Mm.
So it's almost like if you're having those days and you need the comfort food, what is the nutritious comfort food that you could have? And yeah, just scrap the tracking and the macro for today. Just eat something that warms your
Yeah.
heart. And we've all got them from childhood, and they're not necessarily that processed because there wasn't that much processed food
Yeah.
around, was there?
Oh,
So
mate, jacket tater, mate.
yeah,
You can't go wrong. You can't
nice.
go wrong. But like, again, even though it's a plan C, there's still an opportunity to maybe go, could this or actually evolve into a plan B day?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and for some,
Upgrade,
yeah, oh, I'm going to upgrade myself.
spontaneous
Oh,
upgrade.
but the thing is like, I don't decide my clients' plan A's, B's, and C's. We work together to come up with something that works for them. And like for
And it's
some
also
of my,
I was going to say it's so unique to each individual based on their vulnerabilities,
yeah,
what their go-to is when
so
they're
what their
stressed, or
circumstances
yeah,
are, really.
what drops out really fast, what gets added in that probably doesn't serve them. So it is quite kind of unique in that sense.
But the reason I like it is because even when it's almost like acknowledging the day isn't what you intend it to be, but there's still that element of empowerment because you're like, that's cool because I've planned for this and I know what a plan C day looks like for me. And I can still go, I'm going to commit to this, that, and that. Tick, tick, tick.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know what
yeah,
I mean? So there still is that element of like I've controlled what I feel I can, and the rest is what it is. Hopefully tomorrow's going to be a plan B or a plan A day. And it like for some people, a plan C could literally be um, hit your protein target, hit your water requirement, and get a minimal amount of steps in.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
that
yeah,
could be it. And then the rest is like, well, at least I know I'm hydrated. I've got a decent chunk of protein down me, and I've got outside. Happy days. You know what I mean? And it's like it's a really good way of getting people to move away from what they would typically do in those situations,
yeah.
which is not to move at all, which is to just eat comfort food and drink untold caffeine just to get through the day. The next thing you know, they have another shit night's sleep. And
Cycle continues. Yeah,
exactly. But
yeah,
like plan B, for example, might be, do you know what? I have not got it in me today to get my ass to the gym and to do that workout. Instead, I'm going to do this little 15-minute body weight circuit at home
yeah,
or a kettlebell circuit at home.
yeah. Or even just some yoga, like just
Yeah,
some movement, any
exactly. Like,
movement.
just
Yeah, yeah,
exactly. And but then often, like let's say, for example, a person's plan C list is like 3 or 4 healthy habit commitments long. And then you might have, like I said, you might have got through those and gone, I feel better for doing that. And then maybe look at your plan B list and go, could I do a 15-minute workout as well
Yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
add to
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
You know, I'm not quite ready to do more, but I could do that. So it's like there could be a little bit of a merge. And I know it kind of probably feels like I'm, you know, stretching this out, dragging this out a little bit, but it's the feedback I've had from coaching clients with this as an approach has been amazing, because they're like, at least I still feel like I'm somewhat in control
Yeah.
of a day that normally I would have just completely ran away from me.
And I was going to say the C principles that you often help them establish are the ones that are the most energizing, which means they can quickly get to B or A. You know, I mean, there's method to it. It's not
Yeah.
just like randomly. And again, what we do to also see now, because there's a kind of message of like self-care, be kind to self. We've also found people who are going, well, on my, self-care days are now like drink water. And it's like, you can definitely do more than that. Do you know what I mean? There's almost been a real like alleviate yourself. Don't be so hard on yourself,
Yeah.
which we agree with. And we've talked about in this whole episode, but equally you can get to a point where you're not helping yourself in any way because you're being
Show
kind to
yourself
yourself.
some compassion and order a pizza.
Yeah, basically. It does get a bit confusing because that's when people are like, oh, I can justify it now as like kind to self.
Yeah.
Did a day of Netflix, did it, but the longer that goes on, the more you're in this stasis, you're not moving forward. And also there's self-care in the form of an Epsom salts bath and a really long walk as well. Do you know what I mean? There are things that could really restore your body and help you, energize you, ready to go up a gear the next day. Not that should always be the driving factor, but again, the more that we start to do some of, as we've said, the deeper work, the more we get familiar with ourselves, familiar with our body and its needs, and then we can make better decisions. But I also want to say one thing that we've not touched upon, which I think is really powerful, is loneliness. I think is really rife at the moment, but a strange loneliness that's a little bit more, it's not a physical loneliness because we're surrounded by people all the time, we're connected all the time. You can have a very busy family life, but you're very emotionally alone in that maybe you're responsible for everybody. Maybe you're battling some really difficult thoughts and perceptions about yourself, about your body, about your weight, and you don't want to share it because everyone's tired of hearing about it. Maybe I see that a lot if you've tried and not managed to lose weight in the past. Maybe you're just not the sort of person that ever talks about your struggle and your battles. So it's getting stronger and stronger and deeper because you're not expressing it. And sometimes finding communities, and some of that will be, if it is, online and you're looking at self-development and weight loss, and again, that's what we've always aimed to do, is build supportive communities. And it's not about competition, it's about when you struggle, you say, I'm struggling, could you help me? And I think this is one of the places where some online communities can be quite destructive if they're very restrictive and dogmatic, and others, if they're more kind of, yeah, I've been where you've been and this is what I did, can be amazing and game changers. But also it's not just about online communities as much as I'm saying, we have some offerings with that and we see it be very powerful. It's what is your connections in your day-to-day, in your week. And I realized I was missing that for years and years and years. And I didn't have friends that I could say, would you like to go and do that? I had a couple, but they're in my 30s, pretty much. We talked about this the other day, and I was like, what is it that kind of changed in our 30s? And we said, everyone went and had kids and we didn't. And we became suddenly quite lonely and isolated from, friends were like, you need to book us 6 months in advance if you want to hang out. And we were like, no, but you don't understand. We have a business, which is our kind of big baby. And we don't always know whether we're going to be able to do something, and we can't do 6 months in advance.
That was quite a transitional period, actually.
And then it was just friend after friend after friend sent us a baby scan, and we were just like, it was just difficult. And we had a little bit of a journey with it ourselves where we thought we'd have children and it didn't happen. So it was a bit heartbreaking. But I remember feeling that loneliness just build and build and build. And then it got to a point where my routine didn't really involve anyone because I knew everyone was too busy. And so, and they were on completely different timetables to us. And, even though you have friends.
Sorry about that, guys.
And you have friends kind of scattered everywhere, which is another thing. Geographically, you can end up, some of my best friends were just geographically miles away as well. So then add that geographical distance to the difference in our routines and times and availability, and it it got quite hard. And what's again been nice starting in a new country is finding new friendships, and also trying to find, as we just said before, time together that's really deep and genuine about having lovely conversations and doing things that also nourish you. And so
Yeah.
that's why I said about going hiking or going for a sauna or meeting after yoga class, or so you keep each other accountable in a way to going and doing something that's really help, resourcing for you, but also that conversation, that company, and is amazing. And I actually had a chat yesterday with a friend who does yoga, and we were talking about digestive issues, and she was saying how for so long, she said, as you step up as a teacher and everyone, she said I used to draw my stomach in and then realized I wasn't breathing properly. And,
Yeah, yeah.
like I had so much tension around my stomach. Is it any wonder that I've had IBS all my life? And I'm like, I think every woman's been drawing a stomach in for about 30 years, like, because of the shame around it. And it was such a lovely conversation where we said, let's make a pact to turn up like with our relaxed bellies in future and just, let it all hang out and soften. And like, it was
It's
just
all about
really
the
nice.
confidence.
It was nice to hear other women talk about that struggle and go, let's just relax, but doing nice things. Like, we're not saying we're going to go and, you know, basically eat a tub of quality streets to be kind to ourselves. We're saying, like, could we just relax our stomachs for a start? Do you know what I mean? And just accept that we have,
But
like,
do you remember when we went to the beach, it was some weeks ago, and we got there and there was this woman, like I'd probably say she was in her 50s, absolutely starkers. And and I don't mean that, I'm not saying this to be judgmental, like, but she was overweight. And you know what? We were like, she couldn't give a flying fuck. She's just here on a beach, completely naked, and just like, yeah, this is me. Like, just naked on a beach. I'm not worried about what people think of my body, what I look like, the fact that I'm naked. It's quite common here, actually. Like, just to be clear, like being there's not necessarily nudist beaches, but people do kind of like
I honestly don't even,
strip off.
yeah, but I don't even see that, like, when you kind of think about the body composition side.
No, but the only reason I was highlighting that, because obviously I wasn't judging. I was just
No,
like,
but it's an
I was like, I,
observation.
I was like, fair play. But
It's an
I
observation.
almost admired that. I don't know, like I admired her lack of. I've lost the. I can't think of the word, but just she just clearly like just wasn't phased at all by what
No,
any
no.
like what anyone else was.
Literally, I looked at her and felt inspired
Yeah,
to be. I would really struggle to sit naked in front of anybody at any age. Do you see what I mean? And swim and not care what people thought. And um, I think I mentioned it on, did I mention it on the other one? I did a Temascal and we all had to go in naked. And I remember thinking, I've never sat in a naked
yeah,
sauna. Whereas obviously in other European cultures, it's perfectly natural to be naked in the sauna.
yeah, yeah,
Whereas I would say the Brits, but maybe not everyone, but definitely the way I was brought up was like, you get the towel and you hide your body, you cover
cover up.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah. And so there's like a degree of just, it's a strange thing. It just makes you, I think, more than anything, so super conscious of your body. And then
yeah,
obviously you start to read into that a bit further and decide like it doesn't compare, it doesn't add up, it's not beautiful. And so whenever I see anybody doing anything here and like with this childlike freedom of like, yeah, I'm naked, deal with it, like
yeah,
I love it. And I just think it's so freeing. But it's also, like you said, what an amazing human being to be just so comfortable in her body and let her body feel things.
yeah,
Because the other side of it is, if we're at war with our body and the way that it looks, when you go into the sea, you're more likely thinking about that than going, oh, the feeling of the sea,
mm.
the waves, the coldness, whatever, the freezingness here. So, like, I'm not a
Uh,
huge fan of the sea at this time of year at the moment here, but you're so preoccupied with the appearance that you miss the experience.
mm.
And that's the
Yeah,
saddest
yeah.
thing ever.
Well, it's like when you see we mentioned this before, but it's like when you see men and women that are in fantastic shape. They look great, but in a photo they look more like I've seen this with a lot of men. Like if it's like a topless photo, who are almost like so much more focused on tensing to look really good for the photo that they actually look really uncomfortable. They're not really smiling
Yeah,
properly,
yeah, yeah.
and it's like even though like I'm sure if they weren't tenting, they'd still look great. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
it's like, but it's almost like we're almost like, oh, quick photo. People are going to see my body. I need to tense and make sure I look as ripped or as muscular as possible. When in fact, actually, you should have just relaxed and smiled
Yeah,
for
yeah.
the moment.
We've both done photo shoots kind of professionally and then for our own brand. And then
When we were models. I'm
no,
joking.
but we did
Yeah.
magazine articles and things like that. And you do get told like they want to present you as this kind of look a certain way. And I remember feeling at the time, I developed a loathing for photo shoots and used to come away from them just feeling exhausted from it, but also, I guess, slightly inauthentic because I was like, I don't really feel like much of that. I have to say, the last one we did, the last couple we've done with for our brand, I have loved, and it's been me and you walk in with Hamish and just a few
Right.
shots of
Yeah.
us training.
That,
They've
yeah.
been really nice,
And they
but
were great photos as well, like because they just felt like really natural, like
yeah,
it wasn't posed for. It was they would literally say, just walk from there towards us and just have a chat amongst yourselves. And it
yeah,
was like that was great. And we were just talking about normal stuff and we were really happy with the photos. And funny enough, actually, when Keris was firing around with my laptop to figure out the time, it's opened up a presentation next to the Zoom window. And there's a photo from, I mean, that's got to be about 10 years,
yeah, just
maybe
over
more.
10 years ago.
Yeah,
It's in
go.
London, isn't
And it's funny because like I look a lot younger.
it?
Hamish, bless him, has got a completely black face. There's no greys whatsoever.
Now he's completely grey almost, isn't he?
Yeah, and that was on a photo shoot back in London. Oh, I used to be so handsome, Kerish. What happens to me? Still got massive eyebrows though. Could have been bad boys.
But we should end on this one question actually.
Question.
One of the questions we asked was, what's the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to you? And it
Yeah.
wasn't my question, so I didn't answer it. But later on, I was telling the story of, do you remember when I went into a training school for makeup and hair that was in Covent Garden and got my eyebrows dyed? Do you
Oh
remember?
yeah, yeah.
I've never had that done before. I've seen people with lovely eyebrows. I want it done. And when they were doing, we were actually talking about when something's happening to you, like your dentist is looking in your mouth and you see their eyes go like, oh dear, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And the judgment, and you go, oh God, I can feel it. But I remember when this girl was doing my eyebrows, all the students' eyes just got wider and wider, and they were like, shit. And so I knew
Oh
whatever
no.
she was doing was going horribly wrong, and she started farting around. But anyway, I came out with two big slugs on my face.
Oh
Look like you. But then I had to go and teach legs, bums, and tums.
yeah. It's funny because I'm not really one to get embarrassed as such. So I don't know. I'd have to think about that.
Well, I'm going to colour in your eyebrows and see if you
Shave
dare
one off.
walk
Oh my
around
God,
with
that'd be
town.
insane. That'd be embarrassing. Yeah. Um,
Yeah, you was say it's yeah.
but what I think would be good to end on is because, we've spoken a lot here about, you know, making time for yourself, putting yourself first a bit more often, showing yourself a bit more compassion. And the reality is, those things are difficult to do, especially when you have been programmed for so many years now to maybe put yourself on the back burner for whatever reason. But what I want to say is like if you are on a journey to where you do want to lose weight, you do want to change your body shape, you do want to get healthier and fitter and things like that, like you can achieve that whilst being kinder to yourself, putting more boundaries around you, your time, and the things that you want to do. Like it can all come together. And that is a big focus for our January plan this year. It's like, yes, there's going to be all things geared towards your nutrition, training, exercise, but like there's going to be a lot more on the stuff behind the scenes that helps with the decision making process, the day-to-day decision making processes around those things, like the things that you can do to increase the chances of you making your next meal a good one, you getting some form of movement or exercise in the bag. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I was just about to say I kind of went off on a tangent talking about the like social connections and kind of people you spend time with. Because what I meant to say was lots of people feel they need accountability, and we all do need accountability, but we also want to feel some degree of not needing accountability because we want to do these things
Mm.
naturally, organically, innately, like whichever way you want to put it. And I think part of the process of maybe working with a group is seeing this behavior modeled
Mm.
really well, and that really helps you to kind of go, I can see the benefit in that person. But also just having some encouraging words
Yeah.
that you can do this. That's not really accountability is when you turn up and do something you don't want to, like, you don't really want to do, but you're forced into it because of a commitment to a group. That's accountability. But what about being around a group where everyone just gives you so much courage and helps you see the things you can't see, because we are our own worst enemy at times and very self-critical. What if people tell you what they can see truly to help you see what is truly there? That then helps a lot of this process get easier. So group support is not and if you are in groups where this isn't how you feel, scrap the whole like, oh, everyone else is doing this many steps, I can't keep up. Like, forget all that. If the group itself doesn't, if their words don't inspire you, motivate you, and help you to go, I am a bloody awesome human being, then you're not in the right group. And if you're being guilt tripped and all these kind of things, and sometimes that's us reading the situation, you know, we have to be careful of that. But that's, I want, if you are still on a mission with this stuff, find a community like that to go and change holistically and completely, rather than doing like just signing up and paying money to do a shit ton of stuff that you don't even want to do and are probably not going to be doing come March.
No, exactly. And I think like, you know, like we work with clients. So like we've been doing a lot more of the one-to-one coaching this year, and which is amazing, of course, you know, like working with someone on a one-to-one level. But we've always placed a lot of value on the group coaching side of things, because it can be really, really powerful to be part of a community. But in working with so many different people on a one-to-one basis, like we work with people from all walks of life, don't we?
Yeah.
And the reason I'm sharing that is because I think when you do go into a group environment, the urge to compare is strong. Oh, well, they're getting better results than me because of X, Y, and Z. You know, they're not dealing with these things that I'm dealing with, so therefore it's much easier for them. But the reality is like, I think that in itself is a coping mechanism. It's a way of protecting yourself to go,
I don't need to change.
yeah, I don't need to change, or the reason I can't change, or the reason they can and I can't is because of
X.
whatever.
Yeah.
But I can tell you right now, that is not the case. All the things that people think would make them creating change easier doesn't necessarily. You know what I mean? Like, I know people with no kids that struggle. I know people with 4 kids that make amazing change. So it's almost like you could, yeah, does having children, does have independence, you know,
Create a barrier.
create a barrier? Yeah, it does. It definitely, like, you know, restricts your time available to yourself. But that doesn't necessarily mean that if you didn't have kids,
It's going to be
all your
easy.
problems would be solved, and you'd have absolutely no problem creating positive change. You know, same with jobs. You know, I know people that work like much, you know, yeah, you know, like longer hours than others, you know, that are still able to kind of like tick boxes versus people that maybe don't. And it's like, we can compare all we want, but the reality is, like, we have to stay focused on ourselves. We have to. And that's where I think, like, you know, like the reframe comes into it, because it's like, we can't just cherry pick a circumstance and go like, oh, if this was the case, it'd be fine. You know, it's all about working with what you've got, changing what you can, changing what you need to, changing what you want to, you know, to get that return, you know, that you want, which might be weight loss, muscle gain, just a healthier routine, full stop. But I'm gonna stop there. Um, Happy New Year, I guess.
Yeah. Or
When this goes out,
Merry Christmas
Merry
and a Happy New
Christmas,
Year.
Happy New Year. Another year in the bag. Fitties 2025 is a coming.
Big one for you.
It is. Be the
Big,
big 4-0.
big 4-0.
Gonna plan a big party. Or you're just gonna
Or
take me to the pizzeria.
big 4 bro, we'll
A
call it.
40-inch pizza.
I wonder what you're going to say there.
Oh, hey, what's he into? Kinky devil.
I was
But
going to say big 4 bro.
big 4-0. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it actually. You know, don't know. Feels like quite excited for that milestone. Big 4-0.
Got to do 40 things next year.
Well, no, it's so
40
I
things
can
before you're
finally start my Fit at 40 Instagram
40.
page.
Yeah.
You know,
Fit at
do
40.
you know what I mean? It'll be legit.
Yeah.
You know. Um,
Look at this transformation I achieved in a year.
But Fitties, once again, I hope you got something from that. You know, I feel like I say, one little takeaway: that creates any kind of positive change, happy days. You know, don't try and change it all, but
And pass on to anyone that's about to sign
yeah,
up to some 30-day.
yeah, say that this is an opportunity to do things differently.
Differently.
But honestly, if it is like, that's what I want to leave you with. You
Oh,
know, like,
anyone that mentions they're going back to a diet that didn't work 20 times
yeah,
before,
don't
but they're
do
going to
it.
do it again in
It
January
won't work
anyway.
this time, I promise.
Yeah.
But we would love to help, of course. You know, get in touch with any questions whatsoever. We've got lots of different like helpful resources that aren't even necessarily plans. You know, we've got some great cheat sheets that are incredibly helpful to have those in your back pocket in moments of need. You know, can go a hell of a long way. So yeah, get in touch, y'all. But yeah, here's to another year. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Let's end the year with a bang. Wherever you are, end the year with a bang.
But not fireworks
So you can,
because of the dogs.
because of the dogs, yeah. And you can hit the ground running in 2025. But thanks for listening. See you in episode 202.
Bye bye.
See ya.